started, or I'll start with introductions and stuff. I want to start recording this. So thank you everyone for coming. A little bit late start, just remind people if they want to tune in, you guys have the link. This is the 2022 USG presidential, vice presidential debate. The recording will be available afterwards too, so you can let people know that they can watch it after. So we'll start off with, we're going to start off with introductory statements from each of the tickets. I will dictate the order, and then same thing for questions. You guys are going to alternate what order you guys go in. Each presidential ticket, I'll have everyone introduce themselves after, I go through the format and the agenda. So after questions, there's going to be about 8 from the moderators. Each ticket gets a minute and a half to respond to the question that the moderator poses, and then I will, to let you guys know if your time limit, I'm gonna do the raise hand function when you guys have 30 seconds left, and I'm gonna do it again when you have 10 seconds left. And I won't mute you guys, but I'll try to tell you guys to finish up. And then after we do moderated questions, we'll take a look at the audience questions if we have time, and then each ticket will be allowed to have a minute and a half to do their closing statements. So minute for opening, minute and a half for closing. Each ticket can decide how they split up the speaking portion. So it's up to you guys, whoever decides to speak. So who we have today is moderator. I'm Halain Lau. I'm the Chief Justice of USG. Do the other moderators want to introduce themselves?
Sure. I'm Maggie. I am the editor-in-chief of the Daily Campus, which also typically helps moderate the debate every year.
Thanks, Maggie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Natalie. I'm the UConn Praxis president.
Thanks, Natalie. Okay, so we're going to have the tickets introduce themselves. So do Mason and Peter, you guys, I kind of said you are, but you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Sure. Thank you, Holly-Ann. Good evening, everyone. As many of you probably know, my running mate, Mason Hahn, my good friend Mason Hahn as well, as he is the current president of USG. Beyond that, you may not know who I am. I'm Peter Spinelli. I'm someone who strives to make UConn better than how I originally found it. Just like Mason as well. That has always been our motivation since day one. With that being said, through my experience with the undergraduate student government thus far as a senator, member of the Diversity and Outreach Commission, and most currently as Chief of Staff to the Vice President, I've established and expanded projects that look at food insecurity here on campus, ensure diversity and inclusion, and promote mental health awareness here on our campus as well. However, the job is not finished. Mason and I are both aware of that, and we are here not to make empty promises, but to continue the work that we're already doing, because we know that real, meaningful, impactful, and tangible change doesn't happen overnight. It takes momentum, and that's what Mason and I both have, is that momentum to keep going, and we're going to build on that in the year to come as your president and vice president. Thank you.
Peter, was that your introduction?
Yes, I'm sorry. Was I not supposed to do that?
Well, I didn't explain that well, but it's all good. So you guys, I guess we'll just go into introductions because Peter, Mason, that was your introductory statement. All right, perfect. No, it's all good, guys. So we're gonna that's the way we're gonna continue. So Dee Dee and Matt, you guys want to introduce yourselves and then present your opening statement.
Yeah, let's go.
Hello, everyone. This is Dee Dee. I'm Matt. I'm
Yes.
running for vice president, and he is running for president.
Yes. And in short, we are not happy with a lot of things that's happening now at UConn. There's no communication among the student body and the current administration among students. A lot of things can be changed and can be changed for the better. One of the examples we want to touch on is the COVID policies when it goes to different colors, when it goes to orange, yellow, green, food in the dining halls, other cases like sexual assault and everything, and that UConn addresses that, and UConn actually listens to the students and does something with it instead of like sending emails and just ignoring students as a whole. And we as president and vice president want to make sure that students actually get heard. and we want to respond and want to give the students what they want, and we're going to listen to the students.
Yes, our main pointers are communication. We want to ensure the best communication possible with our student body. We want to make sure that students feel heard and that it's not just, oh, we'll send out an email to someone regarding this or that. We want to make sure that everybody's on the same page and that there's clear and consistent communication about mask policies and other sorts of things.
Okay. Yes. Thank you.
Awesome. Guys wrapped it up right in time. Okay, so last ticket, do you guys want to introduce yourselves and then present your opening statement?
Sure. Thank you so much, Holly. I'd like to first start off by thanking everyone for giving us the platform here to talk and also for taking the time out of your days to do this, specifically USG Daily Campus Praxis. Thank you. To introduce myself, I'm Charlotte. I am running for Vice President.
I'm Ryan Westervelt, and I'm the presidential candidate.
And just to touch on our goals, we'd really like to support student health and well-being. Those are our main things. We'd like to do that to the best of our ability and to reallocate funding to best support student needs and wants. And this includes everything from including safety, mental health, and physical health. And most importantly, we'd like to listen to student voices and take that into consideration. Thank you so much.
Awesome. So those were the opening statements from each of the candidates. From there, again, I'd like to remind everyone, we're going to move into the question portion. We decided to break up the question portion into 3 different categories, and each of the moderators will take a category. Each ticket gets a minute and a half to respond, and in the case that of rebuttals, we normally will not allow them, however, unless a ticket mentions another one, but I would like to remind all the tickets that just kind of keep the answers to yourselves. There's not really a need to, unless you find a need to mention another ticket, I would suggest not to. And if anyone has any questions, you can put them in the Q&A and we'll ask them time permitting. So I'll do the time alert again. One hand is at 30 seconds left, and then I'll do it again at 10 seconds left. But without further ado, we'll have Maggie take away the first portion of questions.
Thank you, Holly. And also just a reminder that Holly will be the one doing the hand raising at the time intervals, not me. So keep an eye out on her Zoom call. So which candidates are going first? Sorry, let me look.
Oh, I can also say the order as well. So we're going to start off with, the order will be rotating. So we're going to start with how we did for the opening statements. It'll be Mason and Peter, Dee Dee and Matt. Oh, wait, no. Ryan and Charlotte went second, right? Nope. You guys went third. Wow. All right. You guys went third. It's okay, guys. Okay. So we're going to start with Mason and Peter, Dee Dee and Matt, and then Ryan and Charlotte, and then you guys will alternate. So the second question will be Dee Dee and Matt, Ryan and Charlotte, Mason and Peter. But I'll try to remind you guys if we forget the order. Thank you, Maggie.
I'm just typing it down really quick so that I'll just call on whoever is next.
Amazing.
All right. So our first question going first will be Mason and Peter. So, hello. Thank you for being here tonight. Our first question is, what is your overarching vision for USG and what prior experiences do you have that can help you succeed in making that vision a reality in this role?
Well, first of all, thank you guys for having us here. I know I didn't talk in the opening, but it's really great to be here and see you guys today. Well, first thing, our overarching vision is momentum. The plans that we had and that we carried into this administration, into this year, they're really not changing too much because what we do know, and what we've come to understand is that the things that we want, that students want, they take time. I think when I came in here kind of last time and I ran under our last ticket, I think we thought, there were some things we were going to be able to do like that, right? Because that's how easy it seemed. But we want to carry momentum. We want to carry momentum into the next year. And the prior experience that we have is that we've done this for this past year. We've seen the ups and downs, we've seen the highs and lows. We know what it is to create meaningful relationships with administration and student organizations. We know the work that it takes to put into these initiatives and not just say, oh, this is hard and move on to another thing. We've spent time on this. And we bring a wealth of experience, a wealth of, knowledge and a wealth of wisdom, I think, continuing into this next phase. And that's what I'm proud of, that we've done a good enough job to bolster whoever comes in here next. And if that's us, we're really looking to continue the momentum forward.
Okay, thank you. The next candidates to answer this question are Dee Dee and Matt. And I'll repeat the question as well,
Yes.
just so that you can hear it again. What is your overarching vision for USG, and what prior experiences do you have that can help you succeed in making that vision a reality in this role?
Yes. So our overarching vision is that we want better communication, and we want clear goals. We want clear ideas being broadcasted, and we want to have the idea that students are being heard. I'm not entirely sure about Matt. He was on the student council in his high school, and I was not here but back in Amsterdam. I was on the education council, who would decide which certain subjects would be revised and would be changed for the better. And I have experience dealing with certain administration staff and people who our communication works better with or worse in a sense. And I feel that I can be a bridge between the students and like other staff and work together as a whole.
Mm-hmm. And like Didi said, I was in student council in my high school, but on top of that, I also worked as one step down from a manager at my job back home. I worked in a Chick-fil-A, and so I sort of know how to touch down to people maybe that are on lower positions than me and touch base with them, let them know what they want to change, what they have issues with, how we can improve. And honestly, I feel like with me and Didi, our main thing is we don't have any set in place policies yet. I feel like we want to be fluid. We want to adjust to what the students need and when. And yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Next is Ryan and Charlotte. I'll repeat it one more time. What is your overarching vision for USG, and what prior experiences do you have that can help you succeed in making that vision a reality in this role?
I just want to get started by saying that for an overarching vision for UConn and moving forward, what I think is most needed is just a general sense of communication between the student body and administration. Overall, I feel as though I've heard plenty of students say that they try to get into USG, but without like knowing a senator or without like being like in the know with somebody who's leading one of the advocacy committees, it's incredibly hard to get involved. And you can have your voice be heard, but it often isn't actually like significant to the conversation. It seems like in the current system, it is very, very difficult for you to have any influence on how the decisions are made unless you specifically run for Senate and you hold a position. And considering that USG, at least I believe, is an organization that is supposed to allow the student body's voice to be heard and reach the administration, I think that that is unfortunate in the current situation that we're in. As far as experience goes, Charlotte and I both work at the Daily Campus. We have both seen a plethora of examples on both sides of administration mishandlings and students who are disillusioned with the way that administration and USG have handled things. And I just think that in that position, we have gotten the advantage of really being able to see both sides. And I think that will definitely help us moving forward and reaching that vision.
Thank you. Okay, so our order for this next question will go Dee Dee and Matt, Ryan and Charlotte, and then Mason and Peter. So
Yes.
this question is, how will you make yourselves available to the student body so that you know what your constituents want from you?
It's very simple, honestly. We have an email that works, and we'll be available 24 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
And we won't put people on read, and we'll respond immediately, even if it's something that's not feasible. We will respond to it.
Yes, as quickly as possible, of course. Immediate
Yes.
is a little. We're probably going to have a couple of emails coming in, but we would do as much as we can to respond as quickly as possible.
And we really honestly want to advocate honesty with the students. So if something can or cannot be done, we want to be honest with them about listen, we want this to happen, but we can't do this. Or if we can, we can make this happen and do this. And we want to know that at least students, even if they don't get the news they want, they would still be heard. And we think that is very important. And that's also the main reason why we're actually running in the first place.
A lot differently than something like an email chain when you're just sending out news. Oh, this is what's going on. This is what we're doing. We want to receive emails. Let people we want to get a perspective on how people feel about certain policies. We don't want to just send things out and then have people feel like they're blocked. Like we don't want to hear what they have to say about it. We think that it's important that everyone feels heard.
Exactly.
Thank you. Ryan and Charlotte, how will you make yourselves available to the student body so that you know what your constituents want from you?
I think that's really important to touch on, and most importantly, I think not only having methods of email communication, but also other methods too, by, for instance, being where students are, being there so that they can have open conversations, so that you don't have to purely communicate through email, because a lot of times it's a lot easier to have a conversation and understand explicitly what someone needs or what would be extremely helpful in this situation. So I think by being there where students are, being available so that people can contact you, that is something that both Ryan and I plan to work on, in terms of making sure that there are open lanes of communication between students and administration and USG.
And I think it's also really important that the president gets out there and goes to as many events as possible. And if I've got the free time, I know if I were president, I would make sure that everybody was aware of where I was going, what events were being planned. And I know it's important to not just be open to communication, but to actually be present in settings where you're needed or where you're wanted, even just to have those conversations.
Thank you. Mason and Peter, how will you make yourselves available to the student body so that you know what your constituents want from you?
Sure. Thank you, Maggie. It's all about accessibility and making this organization just as much for the students and our constituents as much as it is for us as senators and as part of that governing board of that undergraduate student government. This organization is for them. It's the undergraduate student government. So really inviting them and making them feel welcome to come to our meetings, having focus groups with them, tabling at the union, just all these ways where we can literally ask them what projects they want to see so that we're working on projects that help them and benefit them and are tangible things that they can see at the end of the year. Because that's what USG is all about. All our funding comes from these student tuition fees, and we want to give that back to students the best way we can. So we want to have those open lines of communication and make our organization just as accessible to them externally as it is for us internally.
Thank you. So the order for the next question will be Ryan and Charlotte, Mason and Peter, and then Dee Dee and Matt. Ryan and Charlotte, in what ways will your administration work to build and repair the relationship between the student body and the UConn administration?
As far as that topic goes, I think that the best thing that would help with repairing those relationships, especially after recent weeks in which many different protests have been held over sexual assault and UConn's statements towards where they stand on the Israeli-Palestine conflict. I think the most important thing to do is to, as far as repairing the relationship, you really need to have that open communication. It's similar to what I was saying about the last question, in which you need people to know where you are, and you need to be out there with the students, honestly, because USG's primary goal is to serve the students and to work with administration to help students out the most. I think it's incredibly important for you to get out to events and for you to be a member of the students and join in activities with them and just show that you care and that you're there.
And to touch more on this idea of communication, I think really having that conversation, open discussion, where both parties are really understanding of what the other needs is really crucial to repairing that relationship.
Thank you. Mason and Peter, in what ways will your administration work to build and repair the relationship between the student body and UConn administration?
Maggie, Well, one thing I do want to highlight is that we've been doing that this entire past year. We've rebuilt it. We've rebuilt relationships that we've lost in COVID, that we lost just because of the strife that USG was going through last year. One thing that we've done, and students know this, senators know this, governing board members know this, we've opened lines of communication with administration. For instance, this task force that we have regarding sexual assault, I know a lot of students don't have faith in it. But one thing that I do want people to pay attention to is that I worked to get a student co-chair, multiple student co-chairs on the task force, because before administration, faculty, adults are running these task forces, these groups, talking about students and things that are changing student lives with no students actually involved in the conversation or the leadership of those discussions. That's not happening in our administration, and it hasn't been. We've also opened up lines of communication with UCPD and different departments. We've had conversations that we've actually seen tangible impacts being made within the community. ARP funding, for example. We had conversations within the university and was able to get that out tenfold to the community over social media, over Instagram. So I truly do want people to understand that not only are we bringing those student concerns there, but we are among the students. We are students. We are in the rec. We're in the student union. We're in these student group meetings because we are one of you. And we're representing those interests, and we have been. And what we want to do is continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Dee Dee and Matt, in what ways will your administration work to build and repair the relationship between the student body and the UConn administration?
Well, one thing that was first touched on was that being there on events and being there for students is very important. And we want to go a step further, actually. We want to go a step further and say that we actually want people to know us, and not just know us as president, vice president, but know us as students, and students that are heard and students that we communicate with. A big thing that's been said with also the current administration is that students don't feel heard. And there were protests. There were pro-sexual violence. There was a task force put up, and people still don't think it's believable. There are still posts online on Yik Yak and everywhere that the USG is a joke to them. They don't listen to them. And we really want to make that change. And we want to introduce ourselves not only as president and vice president, but just as students ourselves. And we want to physically have contact with these students and be able to, that they are actually heard and bring out the communication, because even nowadays, students are left in the dark. And sometimes an email or something like that has been sent out, but when students email back, they get no response, they get no clarification on questions. And that's something we think is very important.
Mm-hmm. And like Dee Dee said, I think it's very important that honesty is a part of this. It's very important to be honest with these sorts of things. And I'm just going to be honest. As a student, I haven't been in the board before, and I've personally kind of felt in the dark about a lot of things. I don't think that there's very good communication about certain events. Like the other night, there was the.
You guys should wrap it up. It was awesome.
That's all right.
Sorry, my bad. But this is basically our statement. Yeah.
Okay. Mason, would you like to address their statement?
Yes, I will. So is there a time limit to this as well, or am I allowed to?
For this case, you can have a rebuttal for a minute.
Okay, thank you. I don't think a minute is all. A minute may be too much, but I do want to address that, and I do want to say I do hear you guys. And one thing I also want to make clear is that a lot of students, you may feel like you're shouting in an open space, but we've engaged students. There's a reason why there are co-chairs in the task force. There's reasons why there's students on their period. And another thing that we're actually doing is I actually enacted an ad hoc, which brings in student groups that work on rape and sexual assault to educate us. Because the thing that we are open about is we don't have all the answers, right? We don't know all the answers to all the questions. We don't have all the data to support what we can do and say. So it's important that we bring in people to help us do that. And as far as it goes as being a part of the student government, people are always going to say things about us. People are always going to say that we're not doing something right, or that they think that we should have done something different. But what we've proven is that what we've done is efficient, it has results, and students do feel heard.
So we don't do rebuttals to rebuttals. However, there are more questions in which
Understandable.
in which the rest of the tickets will be able to discuss. So Maggie, are you all set with your portion?
Yep. Thank you all for answering those questions. I will pass it on to Natalie to do the next section of questions.
Thanks, Maggie.
Hi, everyone. So just a reminder for the next question, the order will be Mason and Peter, Dee Dee and Matt, and then Ryan and Charlotte. So to Mason and Peter, our first question is, how do you envision USG and your administration addressing allegations and reports of sexual assault and harassment on campus?
Yeah, so I could touch on that again. So like I said before, the task force that was created, one thing we understand and we also feel as students is that task forces have been largely ineffective. As a student who's a junior, I've seen a lot come and go, and nothing's really been done. But like I also said originally in the past rebuttal that I made in the statement I made before, there's co-chairs on this. Students as co-chairs are bringing forth content. What we're doing is we're talking to students, not just in the ad hoc, we're also going out into spaces when we know that students are going to be engaging in topics like these to bring these into the meeting so we can tell administration, these are your blind spots. You're looking for gaps. These are your gaps, right? And it does not just come from us. We're not saying that we know everything, but what we do know is we know how to go out and get those answers and bring them back. One thing we also want to know is that for all survivors out there, for whether the system works for you now or not, we believe you and we are going to work to address this because we know you don't have faith in the system. We don't really have faith in the system because we've seen how it fails you and how it continues to do so. But one thing that we will not do is we will not sit by and let these things continue to happen. Another thing we want to do is we want to advocate for Title IX changes in the state. UConn doesn't have control over whether Title IX is improved or not. But one thing that we can do and that we have been doing is working with the state legislature to say, look, this Title IX policy doesn't work. This is what will help us make that change and help us help ourselves. So that's pretty much the answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Dee Dee and Matt, how do you envision USG and your administration addressing allegations and reports of sexual assault and harassment on campus?
Well, the biggest thing that happened with the protests is that UConn doesn't want to admit these cases at all. Or if they look into it, they look into very little.
Yes. We all know that there was a large lashback from this email that came out. And honestly, I read that email personally, and I just thought it was an unacceptable way to respond to such horrible things happening. And I don't think it's fair to say, oh, everyone's being heard, we're doing our best. It's like there's some ways that you have to step this sort of thing up. It's honestly,
it's honestly very shameful. And UConn is known amongst its students amongst the highest cases of sexual violence in the country. And UConn, even if it's not good for their reputation to address this, they need to address this and not just something that can be handled by the police. We think UConn should address this and should actually look into it. We think that is something that should have been done from the start, and that task force should be doing now. And we hope that the task force, that's the start of in a good direction, but we hope the task force can do even more for that.
Thank you. Ryan and Charlotte, how do you envision USG and your administration addressing allegations and reports of sexual assault and harassment on campus?
So this is something that I like to think that I'm fairly outspoken about. And I want to first say that I think that the task force is a great first step forward. I think it's something that even if people are concerned about it, it's something that's necessary to move forward towards positive change. We need student voices to be heard, and I think that's fantastic. But most of all, I think the thing that needs to change is that, first of all, administration needs to admit to these things. Taking action after it happens and is great and all, and it moves towards change, but it doesn't absolve what they've done before, and it's not even trying to. It's trying to fix the system without going back and apologizing at all. And I can appreciate that they're trying to fix the system, but there needs to be changes to the way that things happen so that they don't happen again. And secondly, I think what USG needs to do is USG needs to continue to support the students and be much more outspoken, because this task force, it's got a real promise for change, and I really like that. But unless students and USG keep pushing that change, it's not going to come. as Mason said, there's been a history of ineffective task forces at UConn, and I just think that it's really important that we don't let the ball stop. We have to keep the ball rolling, and we need to keep putting pressure on ourselves. And I've got high hopes for it, and I think that it can really end up well if we all work together, and that's what's most important.
Thank you all for your responses. For the next question, the order is Dee Dee and Matt, Ryan and Charlotte, and Mason and Peter. So we'll begin with Dee Dee and Matt. In what ways will your administration work to collaborate with other student organizations on campus and organize the community?
Yeah, that was a good question. So apart from that, we were heard by students, individual students. We also encourage organizations to send us emails and approach us when they can see us, and we could even reach out to them. I have to say it wasn't the biggest thing on our campaigning campaigning
agenda.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry.
I think that personally, most student organizations here, I feel like there is room for improvement with connecting to the presidency and getting themselves more out there. I feel like, especially with COVID happening and that sort of thing, and students feeling left in the dark, there's not as much participation and student spirit here as there could be. And I think that as we move forward, I think that it's important to do everything in our power to branch out to as many students as we can and student organizations. Like I said, it's a lot about being fluid, meaning maintaining the best communication that we can with all students and student organizations, and doing everything in our power to help and keeping everyone together.
Thank you. Ryan and Charlotte, in what ways will your administration work to collaborate with other student organizations on campus and organize the community?
Thank you. I think that's really important to look at. And as someone who's been very involved with a lot of student activities and organizations on campus, I can confidently say that there is a bit of a disconnect between USG and student organizations. And I think that's been palpable, and that's something that we can definitely work to change by improving communication and really just improving the resources that are available for all these student organizations on campus. Students are stressed, and there's a lot of stuff happening around campus. With COVID, academics going on, there's a lot going on, and I think there's a lot that USG can concretely do to best support these students, make sure that funding is readily available to those that need it, and to make sure that open lanes of communication are available for these students and student leaders to be able to have communication and discussion about what could be best and what could best be supported by students.
And I definitely know, I've heard from, I have multiple friends who run clubs, tier 2 and tier 1 clubs. And I definitely know that the whole process is something that right now is very bureaucratic. It takes a long time to go through. It's very complicated. Everybody's very confused, and it always happens, but it takes a little bit too long. And I think that that's something that is small that we could start on and we could really work through. And making it easier for clubs to be heard is an easy way to improve relationships with them, and an easy way to improve relationships with the students in general, I think.
Thank you. Mason and Peter, in what ways will your administration work to collaborate with other student organizations on campus and organize the community?
Thank you, Natalie. I think it's all about finding those disconnects, really. I spoke with the club water polo team today actually, and they're not getting the support they need from the club funding administration here at the university, so they're coming to us, the student government. And most recently, as chief of staff to the vice president, I was actually able to perform an audit of our funding staff within the student government as a way to make those funding policies more accessible to those student groups, so that when they aren't getting that support they need from their own administration, they can now come to us and get that support financially from us, the student government. That just passed actually this Wednesday at our Senate. So it's changing as we speak, those funding policies that are just making that process so much easier and so much more accessible for those student groups. I'll hand it off to my running mate, Mason, finish this off.
Thank you, Peter. One thing I do encourage students to do is please come to Senate. Please come to governing board if you can. There's a lot of good stuff that happens, and a lot of this stuff that's out there, you guys would know, but you got to come and see what we do. Another thing I do want to touch on is that we also have worked with the cultural centers this year because we know that they are underfunded and we've worked to supplement them with money. As of right now, the West Indian Social Organization, for instance, is working with USG in order to get funding for an event. We do this type of work with organizations and we're working on making it better because we know it can improve. But one thing we also know is important that we have to provide spaces for students to keep letting us know where those problems are, what issues they run into, because that's our job. That's what we're here to do. We're here to fund you guys. We're here to make sure that the things you want to do are possible. So we got to keep talking to you guys. You guys keep letting us know where the disconnects are, and we'll keep working to filling those gaps.
Thank you all for your responses. I'm going to pass it to Holly Ann for our next section of questions.
Thank you, Maggie and Natalie, for moderating so far, and great job to the candidates so far. I would just like to alert just like the candidates. I will not be doing the time alerts for this part. My Deputy Chief Justice Damani will be doing it. He'll be raising his hand. But again, you guys have a minute and a half each. I'm going to start off. So starting off, the order will be Ryan and Charlotte, Mason and Peter, Dee Dee and Matt. So Ryan, Charlotte. USG has been criticized for its lack of diversity and representation within its membership. As mostly male identifying tickets running for president, how do you plan to continue and expand on the organization's efforts to address the shortcoming of diversity and in fostering inclusivity, like with the Multicultural and Diversity Senate seats?
Thank you, Holly. That is something that I've definitely noticed, and I think it's something that really speaks to the lack of representation in USG and in leadership. And I think we need to really address this by making sure that open communication, going back to communication, that it's available and that people are aware of what's happening, aware of the events that are happening, and aware of the opportunities that are available to people. I think making sure that this communication is known and all these points are really, really well known and communicated can really help to improve not only diversity, but also making sure that everyone feels included and all these voices are included. Just in like the cultural centers, for instance, there is a lot of diversity there and a lot of voices that aren't necessarily heard within USG. And I think by incorporating that along with really listening to the voices of those that are in diversity chairs really will help to hopefully improve the diversity of our community and make sure that all voices are represented and heard.
Thank you. So next ticket to answer, Mason and Peter. USG has been criticized for its lack of diversity and representation within its membership. With mostly male identifying tickets running for president and vice president, how do you plan to continue and expand on the organization's efforts to address this shortcoming and in fostering inclusivity, like with the Multicultural and Diversity Senate seats?
Well, I really appreciate this question because it was actually one of the reasons why I ran last year. If for those who remember USG last year, there was a lot of conversation within the organization and outside of it of people saying, you know, we don't feel represented, we don't feel heard, and more than that, we really don't feel safe in our identities to be here and have these conversations. One thing that I think we have improved this year is that not one time have we had a conversation this year in which anybody has come to me personally or anybody else to my knowledge and said, you know, we don't feel comfortable here for being who we are. And that's something that my administration takes pride in. But another thing I also want to recognize is, yes, Peter and I are both men. We're both male identifying, and we don't represent all the different identities that exist out here in this university. But like I said before, one thing that we want to do and that we have done and will continue to do if we are elected is empower voices that are not our own. We want to intentionally hire to get people into positions that are not similar to, we want to, we want to intentionally hire to get people whose identities are not like ours represented, right? We want people to feel as though they are a part of the organization and also to show the student body that we see how diverse you are and we want to be reflective of that and carry those same experiences and those same ideas and perspectives.
Thank you, Mason and Peter. Final ticket, Dee Dee and Matt. USG has been criticized for its lack of diversity and representation within its membership. With mostly male identifying tickets running for president and vice president, how do you plan to continue and expand on the organization's efforts to address the shortcoming and in fostering inclusivity, like with USG's MCD Senate seats?
So we know we're not the most representative of like diversity in a
Yes.
sense because we're both male and we're both white. But we do have some experience in this field. Sorry for a second.
Apologies.
Yes. We do have some experience here. Matt went to a high school that was mostly multicultural diverse.
It was a very diverse high school. It was in the middle of New York, so it was just
Yeah.
it was kind of a culture shock when I came here. In all honesty, I was very used to being around a lot of different types of people from where I came from.
Yes. And I used to live for years long in a neighborhood that was mostly consisted of minorities, or at least a multicultural neighborhood in a sense. And we think that the biggest issue now for multicultural, like making seats more diverse, is that there is not enough advertisement for these kind of positions, and not enough ways that people can be heard. And sometimes people think that.
It seems that your time has run up, but that's okay. We're on to the next question. So order's gonna be Mason and Peter, Dee Dee and Matt, Ryan and Charlotte. So Mason and Peter, what do you believe is USG's strength as an organization, and what would you want to improve on it if reelected or elected?
Yeah, I can take that one. Thank you, Holly Ann. I think one of our strengths is that we're using those student funds that we get through your tuition fees and giving it directly back to students. It's that idea of reinvesting right into you, the student body. We do that through our really tangible products and programs and projects that we're able to produce as a student government. Just this semester alone, we've seen projects like Husky Market that was able to serve over 1,000 students across all the regional campuses, as well as right here in stores to combat food insecurity right here on our campus. It's about getting those tangible things that students can see that really make the difference. Hand over to Mason if he has anything to add as well.
Absolutely. That's the main thing. You guys give us $45 in fees. And it's our job to turn that money back over to you and say, this is what that money turns out to be. We've done the period box program, providing menstrual products for over 6 months at a time. We have the Husky Market program, and we also want to improve on the ability to use those funds. We know COVID-19, the policies that are in place are not going to exist like that forever. And we want to continue to use those funds and make sure that you guys feel it, because it's always getting used, but we want to make sure that you guys see it and understand that it is being used.
Thank you. So on to the next ticket, Dee Dee and Matt. What do you believe is USG's strength as an organization, and what would you want to improve on it if elected?
The biggest strengths we think of USG as an organization is that it consists of students, and sorry, we're busy. Where it consists of students, and students who live on campus and know about campus, and know what people want, what students want, and how they want to be heard and represented. What we want to improve is that representation, and we want that communication out there. The biggest things we want to tackle actually really in terms of communication is the COVID policies going onto campus. When are we in orange? When are we in yellow? When are we in green? I feel that's not really properly being addressed, and students want to know.
Personally, I think it's very important not just to stay in touch with students, but also to make sure that students feel safe. I think that a university should be a place where a lot of students feel safe. And this ties into everything. This ties into sexual assault. This ties into student health and wellness. I think that it's important that we put a little bit more funding into making sure that people feel safe with COVID happening. So I think that we should have N95s accessible to students. I think it's important that we stay up to date on what color we should be in. I think personally, just this is how I feel. I think it's stupid.
All right. Thank you, Dee Dee and Matt. Last ticket to answer this question, Ryan and Charlotte. What do you believe is USG's strength as an organization, and what would you want to improve on if elected?
So I'm actually going to take this in a more specific direction. I think that USG's greatest strength, and I think this is something that has actually been utilized really well in the past year, is the advocacy committees. I feel like the advocacy committees have a really good and more direct line to administration and change than the Senate does. And of course, the Senate's very important. But I think that if we can open up the advocacy committees more, especially if you take a look at like the things that have come about in the last year when students are heard and when they work with the funding and the advocacy committees to get changes to happen. It just happens a lot more directly. And in general, the advocacy committees tackle specific issues. They're able to listen to specific problems and they're able to come to specific solutions that work for people. And I think that that's something that not a lot of students necessarily know about or go to the meetings of. Even if a lot of them go to Senate meetings, I just feel like I'm not going to say it's particularly difficult to get heard in an advocacy committee, but it's something that when I ask people, they almost never know about. So I think that if we could open that up more, that would be almost a direct avenue to change and to getting more voices heard and to getting just more general attendance and having more be done.
Okay, thank you everybody. So those are the questions that we have from for all the tickets. So the next three questions are going to be, one is going to be posed to each of the tickets. They're just a little bit different from each other, and each ticket will have 2 minutes to respond, but the warnings will be the same, half a minute, 30 seconds, and then 10 seconds. So Maggie will ask the first question.
Sure. My question is addressed to Dee Dee and Matt. Dee Dee and Matt, as a ticket with little experience in USG, how will you create a knowledgeable team that can hit the ground running if elected?
We think it's very important to work together with people,
Mhm.
and we believe that no one can do anything on their own. Even we can't do this on our own. So even though we don't have the experience in USG, we want to hear and listen from people with past experiences like Mason, and who we can help. We can build ourselves with a team around us who are able to help us how we navigate all these issues and how we are going to properly put USG forward to students.
We will do everything in our power to reach out to people that have experience in this field, people that know what to do and when, given a circumstance that we are not ready to tackle.
Yes.
And
We think we are able to adapt properly and overcome the struggles and issues we have.
Mhm.
And even if we don't have experience in USG, we have past experience, which I think would benefit us really greatly.
I think, like we said before, it's very important to be as fluid as you can. Move with how the students move. I think it's important. We're all in this together. I feel like even as a president, we are still, or as a vice president, we're still students, and it's still important that we all move as one, as a student body.
Yes. Okay.
And we all work together to tackle issues that we were maybe not ready for.
Thank you. Our next question is for Ryan and Charlotte. Similar to Dee Dee and Matt, you've had little exposure to USG. How will you and your team plan to handle the transition to leading this organization?
Thank you so much, Natalie. I think it's really interesting that it is true. We don't have much experience with USG. And that is just the way that things are. However, we have talked to a lot of people who have affiliations with USG and to students who have interacted with USG. I think it's really important to make sure that we compile a team as best as we can who have the know-how, who have experienced things and have the ability to talk on things, and to make sure that this team best encompasses all of our interests, and also to make sure that we have as much experience going into this.
And I also think, DD, Matt, you guys put it perfectly when you said that you're going to look for people that are currently in USG, even ones that you don't know, or people who share different like belief systems than you. It's important to have everybody's opinion be heard. Obviously, that's the entire point of a student government, is to hear representation and see representation from anybody. And especially like looking for people like Mason, who's been like an absolute like great person to have in USG and who's done so much. Like I think looking to people who have been in it for a long time and can help is the simplest way to go, and it's probably the best way to go, is to just like look for sources of inspiration and look for anybody who's willing to help. Because at the end of the day, the president is just somebody who sits in an executive position. It's really important that everybody has some say in every single thing that USG goes on, And it's important to have Senate members help you out, whether you need the help or not. And I honestly think that it would be great to have the help, and I would be happy to include as many people as wanted to be included in my decisions and in my processes, everything I'd have to do.
Thank you guys. So this is the last question from the moderators. I'm going to be asking Mason and Peter. Mason, you were one of the first USG presidents in recent memory running for re-election, and Peter, you've served in USG for the past 2 years. What have you accomplished from your initial goals during your time serving, and what have you not yet addressed that you hope to work on if re-elected?
Sure. So I think I'll start and then I'll pass it on to Peter. One thing that I did, one of the things that I wanted to come in here and do automatically, and not just me, but the people that I came in here with, because I came in here with the team. And I think it was an important thing that Ryan brought up is that, it's not just me that makes the decisions, we make collective decisions. When we came in, we wanted to address number one, the climate and the just the strife that was on campus. I don't know if people remember, but during COVID, people really had difficult times talking to each other and it not being an argument or it not being politically divisive or not just being uncomfortable, right? And I think another thing that people wanted us to do and that we wanted to do is we also wanted to make change apparent within the institutions. We saw everything that happened over the course of 2020 and everything that occurred, and we wanted to make that palpable for people. So we've worked to, number one, extend the research that we have to make programs like Husky Market possible, but to also do things like work to mandate the ABR course. That's something that I've been working on since back in 2020. I remember having a meeting when they were raiding the Capitol. Like that's how long we've been doing this work, and that's something that I hope to continue doing. I'm proud of what we've done. I'm proud of not what I've done, but also what my administration has done. And I'd love to pass it off to Peter to finish that up.
Yeah, this has definitely been a big rebuilding and transition year for us within the student government, even just over the past 2 years. But for me, what I really saw improve in my time here, both as a senator, member of that Diversity and Outreach Commission, and most recently as chief of staff to the vice president, has been in seeing that shift from more performative activism that everyone likes to say, and to those more tangible, impactful things that are coming from USG. Whenever we make a statement, I promise you there's 3 or 4 projects and programs that students will actually see that are coming right after that. Things like we make that statement on sexual assault. That's important. That's what we believe. But what's even more important is what's coming after that with the task force, like Mason mentioned before, and all those tangible things that where students are actually seeing that tangible change coming from. It's not from those statements. It's not from that performative activism. It's from actual tangible execution of programs here. Thank you.
Okay, so those are all the questions that we have from the moderators. We are going to be asking a few audience questions. The moderators will have chosen 3 to ask. The time limit is going to go back down to 1 minute and 30 seconds per ticket. So you guys get the wording again. We're going to start with the order of Mason and Peter, Dee Dee and Matt, Ryan and Charlotte. This one is going to be, so Mason and Peter first. USG recently partnered with Shaw to provide Plan B free of charge for all undergrad students. And the student is asking, how committed is your administration to partnering again with Shaw to bring back free STD testing for all students?
First and foremost, thank you for submitting a response. We did want to hear student questions, so thank you for submitting one. And one thing that I would say is, off the bat, I think that's a great idea. I think that's a tremendous project. And one thing that I would be interested in is not just putting this into legislation, but actually getting it done. One thing that we found when we've worked with places like Shaw and other organizations this year within UConn is that when we show that we're committed, when we show that we have people actually coming to these meetings, legislation behind them, funds behind them if necessary, they happen. That's how Plan B happened, because we have people in student services. Shout out to Alexis Charles, that were willing to sit in those meetings, were willing to put the time in to get those things done. And if that's something that the students want, which I believe absolutely should be something that every student should get, that is something that will happen. And we'd love to make that a possibility. We love to, just work with students to make that possible. And then to everybody's points I've been talking today is get that information out, because what good is something that happens and people don't know about, and that's something that would tremendously support all of us here. So I think it's a great initiative. And if somebody would be interested in USG that's listening right now, would love to support that piece of legislation. We'd love to make it happen.
Thank you. So, Dee Dee and Matt, USG recently partnered with Shaw to provide Plan B free of charge to all undergrad students. How committed is your administration to partnering again with Shaw to bring back free STD testing for all students?
We think it's incredibly important, and we actively encourage it as well.
Just as Mason literally just said, we are in full support of that sort of thing. As I mentioned before, we feel that we want to keep students feeling safe, not just feel like they're being heard, but also that they feel safe. And we would definitely do everything in our power to put that back in place.
Yeah, honestly, actually, I guess that's basically our,
Yeah.
our answer. Yeah, it's very quick, very sound.
We're in full support of it.
Also, in a quick one to add on is that even though we are not the most knowledgeable with communication and cooperation with Shaw, we also want to talk to people who do have the experience and want to help us being able to operate this communication and being able to work for a better future in that sense.
Yeah. Even though we don't have as much experience as, let's say, Mason, we want to do everything in our power to provide the best presidency that we can, regardless of experience, improve as we move forward.
Yeah.
Thank you. Last ticket, Ryan and Charlotte. USG recently partnered with Shaw to provide Plan B free of charge for all undergrad students. How committed is your administration to partner again with Shaw to bring back free STD testing for all students?
Thank you, Holly. I'd say that we are extremely committed to making that happen. The Plan B in and of itself was a great step in terms of assuring student health and wellness, and also making sure that students feel safe and have the ability to do the things that they want to do. STD testing is just going to help that further, to make sure that student health and wellness is something that is prioritized here. And it is a really great initiative, not only to making sure that discussions about STDs are more common, to make sure that testing is more readily available so that people can prioritize their health in all of these situations while still living out their life in making sure that they can go about doing the things that they would like to do. And I don't think it should stop there either. I think it's really great how the other tickets touched upon communication with Shaw and to make sure that that can really happen. But I think there are many other things that we can do to make sure that student health and wellness is really prioritized. And this extends also to things like mental health. I know a lot of steps have been taken in terms of making sure that there's diverse therapists available and that there is a wealth of resources available to students. And I think it'd be really great to partner with Shaw again and to make sure that all of these things are consistently available, widely communicated, and just known about in the student population to make sure that students can readily access all these resources and really utilize them to the best of their ability to prioritize their health and well-being.
All right, thank you guys. Maggie, you've got the next question, right?
Yes. So our next question from the audience, and in the first order is Mason and Peter, Dee Dee and Matt, and then Ryan and Charlotte, right? Okay. So Mason and Peter, our next question from the audience is, what separates you from the other candidates?
I can answer this one. It's momentum. That's what Mason and I are coming in with. We have the experience, and we have the understanding that these projects that a lot of candidates usually promise to students within debates just like this is the fact that, oh, they're going to make all this change in that time. We're coming in with that understanding that change, real tangible change and impacts takes time. We've been working on it for a year now. Mason with that anti-Black racism course still in the works, and we're still planning on keeping those projects up and running as we move into this next presidency, hopefully. But we have that understanding that change takes time, and we're trying to come in with that momentum. And really, that's our biggest strength as a ticket here.
Absolutely. One thing I will say as well is we're doers. You know, we first of all, I think we both speak very well. I think we proved that today. But one thing that we also do is we are willing to put in those hours. We've been in the USG office, hours past closing, hours past. I've hid from the U staff so I can stay in the office to keep doing work. Things like that. We're committed to the process. We're committed to making sure that students feel that we are working for them. That's why we're here. That's what these student funds are utilized for. And you know, that's what we've done, is that we've engaged in action, so much so that we want to continue it, because we are so tied to what we've created that we want to see it through, that we want to see it continued, and we want to see it go on further. There's a lot of things changing. COVID-19 policy is going to be changing. Funding policy is going to be changing. And we want to be able to carry through USG so that there's not a huge transition, but also to be able to build on the foundation that we've created this year and to be able to enact the change that we want to for next year.
Thank you. So the next candidates to answer this one will be Dee Dee and Matt. What separates you from the other candidates?
We think both as students here, we are very social guys, and we talk to a lot of people, and we met a lot of people at the gatherings, at events, at dining halls, and even at parties. And we talk to people about like what's the issues at UConn and what are the problems. We have these issues. What do you guys have? And everyone we talk to has issues somewhere. And we want to address these issues. And we don't want to work around the bush and say like we're working on it. We want to make this happen. And certain things that are happening now, momentum, people still aren't feeling that. And people still aren't feeling that nothing really has changed. And nothing has changed over the time period. And things have gotten worse with COVID. Things that didn't have to get worse. And we think we're actually someone among the students who talks to them all the time, every day in the dining hall, in the lounge areas, in the library and places like that. And we think that separates us, actually, that we get to hear all these different voices, and we don't shy away from it, because we like to hear people's opinions about stuff, and we like to hear what they want to contribute. And everyone has a voice, and everyone has a story here on campus, and they're not just a number.
I think the best way to summarize it is that we're not just doers as presidents, we're also listeners. We want to do everything that we can to get every voice. Of all the people that I've talked to about UConn over the past year, past semester, whatever it is, nobody has been fully satisfied.
Mason, are you asking for a rebuttal?
Please, if that's
Okay.
allowed.
Your ticket was not specifically referred to. If you would like to talk about something, just mention it in your closing statement.
Okay. Thank you, Chief Justice. Madam Chief Justice.
All right. That being said, Charlotte and Ryan, what separates you from the other candidates?
Yes. So I think something interesting that I've noticed about USG is that the majority of Senate members and just people on the advocacy committees and in the executive branch of USG who are not part of specific major seating. It's a lot of poli-sci majors, a lot of business majors, a lot of humanities majors in general. Now we're both engineering majors, and a lot of the extracurriculars we're part of are fine arts, music, like different art. And I think something that isn't necessarily heavily lacking in USG, but that it does need some influence from, is the fact that different majors need to be asked, because different majors have different needs. Different buildings in campus function differently. I know a lot of engineering majors spend a lot of time on the science side of campus that humanity majors might not necessarily get to go to. So I just think that we have a little bit of perspective on some of the specific areas of campus that might not be as well represented in USG. And it's not anything that is incredibly different, but it is something that I think we can bring to the table that not necessarily everybody else can.
And I think just to touch up on that as well, we also have a lot of experiences, and we've had a lot of conversations with people in terms of our backgrounds and having conversations with people where I've heard things and had things where people have told me that they don't feel safe on campus, that they don't feel that they are well supported in their situations. So I think bringing in all these experiences and knowing all of these things will really help to shape our presidency and really make sure that we act to the best of our ability.
Thank you. So the last question from the audience is going to be presented by Natalie.
Thank you, Maggie. So for this question, the order is going to go Dee Dee and Matt, Ryan and Charlotte, then Mason and Peter. And our final question from the audience, starting with Dee Dee and Matt. What is your plan to support queer and trans students at UConn? Please be specific.
Okay. Yeah. We want to create. We want to support them as good as possible and let them know that they're fully welcome
We
here.
want to make
UConn.
them feel welcome.
Yeah, we want to make them feel welcome. One of the biggest issues that, at least for me personally, that hasn't really been tackled is the way, especially at the student union at the square, where there has been a lot of hate speech against the LGBTQ community, and the LGBTQ community has been trying to retaliate with their counter protesting and showing that God is love. People should be able to love everyone. And we want to let them know that we support that and let them be heard. We want to create even an awareness day for them specifically, that people know that there are LGBTQ community members on campus, and they're amongst us, and they're not different from you and I, and they're perfectly welcome here. We're all Huskies.
I wouldn't just say that they're.
I
think it's important that we not only support the LGBTQ community by saying, "Oh, we support you," whatnot. I think it's important that we maybe dedicate some portion of our funds, perhaps have some sort of fair or some sort of day dedicated to actively supporting LGBTQ community. And like Didi said, there was protests happening, and we stand by that every step of the way.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next, Ryan and Charlotte, same question. What is your plan to support queer and trans students at UConn? Again, please be specific.
So I just want to start by saying that as I have an incredible amount of support for all identities on campus, but like saying that I am a professional on the topic would be a lie. Honestly, I don't identify with any like groups that are typically considered minority groups. So I think that our best course of action would be to go through the Rainbow Center. There are plenty of people there and plenty of faculty and students that are incredibly supportive, and they're incredibly well versed in how to handle everything and how to accept people and provide support to people who are looking for it. And I think USG having a closer relationship with the Rainbow Center would benefit everybody in USG through direct relationships, and also USG helping the Rainbow Center to organize more events and to secure more funding would be really important for the Rainbow Center to reach more students. I think the Rainbow Center is like a fantastic facility. I think it's really, really important for inclusivity, and just anything we could do to support the Rainbow Center and in turn support anybody who wants to go there and who needs to go there or needs it as a comfortable place to be could help all students on campus.
Yeah. Mason and Peter, what is your plan to support queer and trans students at UConn? Please be specific.
So first and foremost, I wanted to acknowledge, that I am straight. I can't identify with these groups, nor do I want to speak for them. And I want to continue what we've done this year, which is bringing groups who, that are personally affected by these issues, who personally identify with these identities, and be able to amplify them. I actually had a conversation with a friend of mine from back home that, one thing that's frustrating for them, and he also mentioned their community, was, being referred to as your dead name, the name that you no longer identify as, and having that constantly be brought up. So one thing that we do want to work on is preferred name changes for mailing addresses, for IDs, making sure that people are called by the name that they want to be called by. Another thing that we wanted to do and that we've started this year, but we want to expand is the cultural center funding. We've obviously allocated sources to the AACC and PERLAC, but we also want to expand that to the Rainbow Center, and then be able to work with the group groups within to be able to educate the campus, because that's the one thing that will bring us closer together than anything. Not trainings, not anything other than education and being able to come together for conversations and know more things. Before I really got into student advocacy, USG work, I never used my preferred pronouns because those weren't things that I thought about. But when I had these conversations, when I was in these spaces, in WIGS classes, or just talking to these groups, I was able to see that, these are things that exist in the world, right? And if we want to be inclusive, if we want everybody to feel like they are a part of the same community, we have to acknowledge that. And the way that we do that is by including not only experiences, but also that same type of advocacy. And then when we don't identify, when we can't best speak for somebody, we get them to speak for themselves and we amplify that to make sure that they are being heard just as we're being heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Great job to all of the candidates. I'm going to pass to Holly Ann for closing statements.
Thank you, everybody. So we are at the end of the question portion. There is one portion left. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, for the candidates, for responding. So we will start off with the order of, so I'm reminding everybody, closing statements, you and your ticket have a minute and a half as opposed to the minute at the beginning. So the order that we're going to do is Ryan and Charlotte, Mason and Peter, and then Dee Dee and Matt. So whenever you're ready, Ryan and Charlotte, you guys can go.
Yes. First, I just want to start off by thanking everybody, the other candidates, for participating in the debate. All of the moderators, I really appreciate it. Everybody in the audience, thank you for turning out. And I just want to start by saying that what we need is a united UConn. The student government, the student body, and administration all needs to work together in order to move UConn towards being a more open and inclusive campus. At the end of the day, without representation from every single possible group, we are not going to reach the best solution for every group. We need to hear every voice in order to come to a solution that works for everyone. And I think that our campaign and our presidency would really be able to work towards that. I think communication is key, but not just any communication and being heard. We need to amplify voices of groups that can't necessarily be heard as easily. We need to work together to include everybody in every decision-making process. And I think transparency is really key. The process needs to be not just clearly defined, it needs to be clearly shown, and it needs to be open to everybody. And I think that regardless of who's president, as long as we all work together and listen to each other, at the end of the day, that's all that matters. And we can work towards being a better campus and a better student government. Thank you so much again, everybody.
Thank you. So next, Mason and Peter, you guys can go ahead whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Alian. And first of all, I'd like to thank Daily Campus, USG, Praxis, and all the other fellow candidates for being a part of this discussion, as well as the students who have tuned in to watch us. I entered USG a little bit more than a year ago and committed, and when I came in, I was committed to one thing above all else, and that's action. And that is more than anything what I know that you as students want. That's what Peter and I want. We don't want statements of position. We don't want year-long task forces or pretty pieces of legislation or friendly relationships with administration. No, we want action. And that's exactly what we've given you. USG over the past year has put into place initiatives that will and have fundamentally changed this university. Because of the advocacy of this past administration, the pass-fail deadline for courses is lengthened. Plan B is now accessible to the UConn community for free, and programs such as Period Box, Husky Market, and Husky Print are all available to students. We're also working to improve funding policies to make club funding more accessible, the ABR course to be mandated for all first years, and with the UConn administration to ensure that we address gaps in reporting sexual assault, as well as awareness of those same resources to address them. See, like anything else, anything worth having takes time. These initiatives are no different and take time to bear fruit. And what Peter and I offer you is not only consistency, but proven efficiency to ensure that no matter how long these take, these projects are completed at the highest level, because that's what you as students all deserve. So when you go to vote next Tuesday, remember that we know how to lead. We know how to move things forward, and more importantly, we know how to provide students a platform for real action to take place. Thank you.
Thank you. Final closing statement, Dee Dee and Matt.
Yes. So we'd like to thank everyone who's here, the moderators, the candidates, the people who are attending, and a special shout out to our friend James Falconer in the chat. This isn't a quick one. We want to address again that we want to advocate change, and we want to advocate fluidity. We want to advocate communication with the students. We want to have better communication. If people have issues, they can come to us. Well, we can talk to them. We can talk to them in mail. We can talk to them in person. We want to have better COVID guidelines, better ideas addressed, and not just a simple mail, like an honest and real mail, and honest, real communication. We want better options for our dining hall staff and people who want to work here on campus, students who are interested in voluntary work. And we also want to address all the issues where people don't feel heard about sexual assault, about being safe on campus. We think these issues are very important, and we want to address them as openly and sincerely as possible.
Yeah, I honestly, we think that students should feel like adults. Here at UConn, they should be treated as adults. We want them to feel heard. We want them to feel like we are paying attention to what they say. Their opinion matters. We may not have as much experience as someone like Mason, but we're here to make as much change as necessary to meet everybody's needs as much as we can.
So, if you guys are going to vote next week, vote for Matt and Didi. For real change and easy to understand.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, everyone for speaking. I'd just like to remind everybody that if you would like to access a recording of this, it should be made available on the USG website, and I'll also post a copy of the questions that were asked if you guys want to take a look at those. And just reminding people that the voting period opens at noon on Tuesday, March 1st, and closes at noon on Thursday, March 3rd. It's on vote.uconn.edu. Candidates, don't forget to turn in all your required documents. I will send an update about that tonight. If anyone has any questions, constituents, candidates, anybody else, please email me at judiciary@usg.uconn.edu. Do any of the moderators have anything else to say before we sign off for the night?
Yes, really quickly. The Daily Campus is going to be reaching out to all of you with an email soon, offering a response to some questions that we're going to publish hopefully this weekend on Monday. Just kind of doing similar to what this debate did, but asking opinions about certain topics, and you'll have 2 to 3 sentences to respond to each of those questions, and we will compile them into an article and publish them for Monday. So look out for that email from me. Holly Ann passed along all of your emails, so I'll be in touch very soon. And it's optional, obviously not required, but it is an opportunity if you would like to share more about your platform and what your messaging is.
Natalie, you have anything to add, or are we all set?
All set. Just thank you again to everyone who tuned in and all the candidates, and good luck this week.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night and be safe and warm in the snow tomorrow.
Thank you guys for this opportunity.
Have a nice night, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Bye.